passer à la suivante maintenant. So we're going to move to Monika. I hope it's going to work. I mean, it's always a trick. I was in Nantes 2 years ago. They had Axel Lemaire on Skype, and it didn't work very well. So things can go very wrong with Skype when it's not well prepared. So we're going to have Monika Bielskyte. It's quite hard to say. It's even worse than Ezratty. She's a VR specialist, and so she was born in Lithuania. She did some studies in many places in the world. Oh, hello, Monika. Here we are.
Hi there. How are you guys?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you really well.
Okay, with some latency. Oh, it's kind of good. She's in Colombia. You know where is Colombia?
City?
Which city?
I'm from Bogota. I went to Chile, from Chile to Australia, from Australia to New Zealand, back to Chile, Panama, and now Costa Rica. So that's in the last few weeks.
So can you explain us what you're doing right now around the VR scene? Because I did a presentation before on the CES, so I explained what were the kind of big trends hardware-wise. Can you explain us what are the new use cases, the new customer scenarios, and what is exciting for you in that VR space?
Yeah, so straight kind of into the meat of things. So my role is kind of figuring out the strategy for different entities working within the immersive media space and immersive media technology. So I'm a sort of a translator or interpreter between technology people, the funding entities, and the people that are creating the content, because it's sort of very much like different languages, you know, like sort of French and Chinese, and it's hard for them to sometimes understand each other, yet the space will not succeed without them really collaborating. So I sort of help technology companies and startups understand that it's not just about the technology, you know, ultimately their technology is for content, and their platforms, no matter how well structurally designed they are, will be meaningless and valueless without the actual content on them. Same thing with the hardware. You know, it's not about how good the hardware is, but what it allows us to experience, how much it is a tool that really brings something new, meaningful, and valuable to our lives. And then again, the content people, I often say that, you know, the reason why there is not yet so much amazing content is because they're all boxes. Engineers with engineers, artists with artists, directors with their producers. And so it is important to actually support the creative people and help them understand not just where technology is today and what we can today, but often, especially considering bigger Hollywood projects that are interfaced with that, you have to think several years into the future. Because let's say right now I'm working on a big sci-fi project, you know, one of the more anticipated sci-fi series, 2018. So when we think, you know, I cannot speak much about it, but if we're thinking to accompany it with, you know, all the sort of immersive media content, we cannot think into these terms. You know, if the project will be released in 2018, we have to think what will be the level of technology at that time. So,
you know, Monika, we don't hear you very well. So I will ask you to speak slowly. Because, you know, it's like you're sending stuff in 4-bit encoding. So it's very low encoding, very low sampling. So we need to hear what you say. So try to be slow. Okay? And before going on VR thing, can you explain what your job is? You're so-called your creative strategist. You told me that you were working with Hollywood. So I love this situation where you work both with science fiction on one hand and you work with the real world on the other hand. How are those two worlds connected one to the other in your job?
So, you know, I started as a creative, not a technologist, and then, you know, my career sort of shifted in a way that I typically today am spending most of my time with people in science and technology space. And actually, I've been doing that since a few years. So what I'm trying to do is really translate the innovations, the bleeding edge innovations that are happening in science and tech towards sort of the creatives working across the disciplines and really helping them to see technology as a tool to advance the human creativity and to expand the human potential, creatively, intellectually, emotionally, or physically. Now, what is interesting in these two aspects that I do is that, when I work with Hollywood, I essentially help to design future worlds. So I imagine what these alternative futures could look like, which gets me talking really, really wild ideas with science fiction writers, with scientists, technologists, theorists, etc. But when I work in the immersive media tech space, essentially I try to bring these futuristic ideas to life and see how, instead of just focusing on the state of things today, we could really think, what do we want from the future? And then very consciously work towards it.
Can you give a couple examples on
examples such
Hollywood production you worked with?
So one of the first things that I've done, but that's quite a few years ago, I was invited to work with Ridley Scott's production company. And, at that time, VR was just starting to happen. One of the first demos into the office. And sort of got them thinking that it could be a great addition to the... Do you guys still hear me?
En fait, elle est dans une chambre d'hôtel dans là où elle est, là, en Colombie. Et c'est les joies du direct classique. En fait, elle a travaillé pour Mr. Robot. Elle le dit pas, là, mais... Et elle connaît... Alors, ce qui est extraordinaire, c'est qu'elle connaît plein de gens qui... Quand j'ai préparé le call, là, elle m'a raconté qu'elle travaillait avec plein de gens qui connaissaient tout le monde à Hollywood. Alors, c'est toujours rigolo, parce que j'adore ce monde. J'imagine que certains d'entre vous aiment bien le monde de la science-fiction. Donc, elle connaît les gens qui travaillent sur le prochain Star Wars. Elle connaît les gens qui ont... Oui. She's back. Oh, you're back. Fine. Good. So, do you remember where you were before?
Sorry. I remember when I was guys.
We're talking about science fiction and the various productions you were working with and your learnings out of this.
Yes, okay. So, yes, I had the chance to work with Ridley Scott's production company in the sort of earliest stages when VR was just starting to happen. Oculus was being sold, and so I had the pleasure of bringing one of the earliest demos to Hollywood and hopefully exciting them to look more in that direction. I had a chance to work with John DeCuffler, who was technology concept designer for Minority Report, and his company Oblong Industries. Same thing, Alex McDowell, who did production design of Minority Report, Ghost in a Shell, that is coming out in a couple of months' time. And, recently we were talking world building at a very cool conference in Melbourne with, as you mentioned, Star Wars, Diana Williams, who's one of the key people in the story group. And then a couple of confidential projects that I'm working on right now that I cannot yet reveal.
Okay, good. And just early on, in my presentation, I did show the demo video from 8i, this VR, the volumetric video demo in a studio with a woman and the kid. I found that very, very amazing. You know these guys, you know the company, you know what's happening with these guys. Can you talk a little bit about this and what's your views on this kind of scenario? Is it the future or is it kind of wishy-washy at this point? Do you think it's going to be useful at some point? And do you think it's viable, I would say?
Absolutely. So, again, it is difficult for me to talk just about 8i because of the, NDAs and stuff like that. But they were the first VR company I actually worked with. My role was creative business strategy development, pretty complex sounding. So I have been incredibly involved in volumetric VR space, and have done things or am close friends with companies as diverse as 8i, Uncorporeal, 4D Views, who actually are in France and are doing amazing stuff, AMAS, Depth Kit, Scatter. So it is definitely one of the most interesting spaces to watch. I am actually quite surprised that we had the earliest demos, all the way back with the developers, the first developers kit of Oculus. And yet, up to today, nobody has yet done anything amazing with it. The technology itself is still not perfectly stable, but it is indeed good enough to already do amazing things with it. Yet somehow people are still very much hung up with 360. And 360 essentially is a wraparound video that we are stuffing into a headset, which does not necessarily or exactly. The future of VR is not a passive experience. The future of VR is also not just visual plus audio experience. It is a multi-sensory one. So opportunities for volumetric are quite immense because, again, so people confuse sort of scanning with volumetric capture quite a lot. And volumetric capture allows us to actually capture live action. So we can capture living, breathing human beings or animals or whatever that is in full action, not just scan them. What Hollywood, did for projects such as Avatar, sort of 3D scanning actors and then making them into virtual humans and changing sort of their skin or whatever, but they had to manually animate them, which is an incredibly expensive process. Now, volumetric capture reduces the costs of that sort of really drastically. I think it's, in terms of entertainment, this is a huge new area, but for training as well. So it opens a whole scope of possibilities.
Okay, thanks. Monika, in the definition of your life and work, you say you are an activist. What does it mean?
I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm an activist. Maybe I let it transpire. I think, the times in which we live, not all of us can do political work, but not thinking politically is very much a self-indulgency. I think where we are going with our future, from political turmoil to all the issues with the climate, towards technological unemployment, is something that is not yet enough in a public conversation. We really have to think actively how each of us is participating in creating that future that we want to inhabit. Because, now is the future, and every action we do leads towards that space that we will be inhabiting. I often say that, each of us, if we do science or technology or entertainment or advertising, we're not just doing that, we are in fact creating culture. So sort of where our responsibility lies in that. And I think responsibility is immense. And so, in everything that I do, my judgment whether to take on a project really relies so much in what way it could expand, close down the possibilities for future humanity.
So how does this relate to VR? Because there's a link between VR and activism. You explained me when we had the preparation.
Absolutely.
How do you connect those two things?
Yeah, so there's several things. Virtual reality, not just virtual, but augmented and mixed reality, especially when they merge together. I often say that the future reality is a transparent experiencing mode that we choose, because the digital will be so, so enmeshed and linked with the physical that we won't be able to draw that line between, what is real and what is sort of not. It's really how much digital input do we want? What we've seen, though, in the political context of the world is that the voices of alienation, of exclusion, are becoming more and more powerful, not just in the rhetoric, but actually physically. And we have witnessed that, for example, very recently with the executive order of Donald Trump, not allowing citizens, certain nationalities to travel. Even PhD candidates and the Nobel Prize winners and people like Mo Farah, just because he was born in Somalia. So what I want to think is how this could allow us to go beyond these physical borders. How we could, in fact, possibly even allow us to make these physical borders obsolete. How we could, create new tools, and how this could be a medium to really collaborate, not just creatively, but truly, in across the industries, in this virtual space that could allow us to cross these borders. Not just borders that are physical between nation states, but also between generations, between cultures, between societal groups, etc. So that's one important part. How the expansiveness of digital space could make sort of these physical borders obsolete. I think that's immense, and how it can be a co-creation space. How people, how 3 different scientists or musicians, in Nigeria, Japan, Colombia, and Stanford, at the same time, could be working on something together. Not just talking, not just having a conference call, but really being that they're physically in the same space and doing something together, creating certain tools. But then another aspect is how, as education is becoming prohibitively expensive in certain countries and remains very much inaccessible in certain others, how we could facilitate that access to information and knowledge, no matter where you are, through affordable devices. And that is a very, very interesting thing, because we know today that the younger generation adapts and learns so much faster just because of YouTube videos, right? So it's more efficient than reading sort of passively text in a book, etc., because you can, type in questions in the forums. You can, from one video, you can go to the other, and it's, the World Wide Web is at your fingertips. However, with VR, and especially when we go to that interactive phase, you can not just watch it, you can really test and prototype things with it and feel like you are actually doing it. So, how the kids only learn that the fire burns is when they touch it and realize it's hot. So we could actually have these kind of simulated experiences of somebody putting a very expensive robot together, that they could never be able to afford. However, in VR, they could have that kind of simulation. Be in chemistry, in advanced, Harvard-level sort of chemistry class, and testing out all these different ingredients and seeing the reactions, while being in the safe space in a classroom, wherever that is, Africa, Asia, South America, etc. So that's again one thing. And another thing is for people that are, for example, in the Western world, that have a lot of preconceptions about other parts of the world. We could learn how much actually we have to learn and how much there is to learn from the rest of the world. So these are kind of main use cases, but I have not even started about medical applications, which are immense.
By the way, you did study in France a while ago. Didn't you?
I actually did not study in France. No? I lived in France.
Oh,
I lived in Paris for 10 years. Paris is my base, but I'm very much a dropout type of a character. I ran away from home when I was 15, started working.
Okay, so can we make an experiment? Can we make 16? An experiment as a closing? Can you speak in French?
Yes.
So that we check that French in 6-bit is better than English in 6-bit for us. I want to do some comparison. So, can you make this conclusion back on something we didn't get very well? Peux-tu parler de AR vs VR? On a d'un côté Magic Leap, Google Glass, et de l'autre côté, on a Oculus Rift, HTC. Comment tu vois les choses évoluer de ce point de vue-là? Est-ce que les deux vont fusionner? Bien sûr. En anglais, en français. Hein.
Donc, je vais essayer de parler en français. Je comprends tout en français. C'est un petit peu plus difficile pour moi de parler aussi.
Non, on comprend beaucoup mieux. Hein.
Bon. Bien. Et maintenant, j'ai espagnol dans ma tête. Mais, donc en fait, on crée cette différence artificielle entre réalité augmentée, réalité mixte et réalité virtuelle. Et aujourd'hui, elles sont séparées parce que les devices, comment on dit les devices en français?
On s'en fout, les devices. Les devices.
Voilà, les devices. Le hardware est toujours comme si on était dans cet état de téléphone mobile brique. Voilà, et on vise le iPhone. Donc on est dans les états très, in a way, in the early stages de cette technologie. Et donc en fait, les plateformes et le hardware ne peuvent pas soutenir cette mode de transparence complète. Donc, on a le Oculus Rift, HTC Vive,
Sony, très segmenté, c'est ça que tu veux dire.
Oui. Voilà. Mais en fait, quand la technologie devient meilleure, quand elle est plus légère, quand le form factor s'améliore, et on a le Magic Leap. Donc, Magic Leap, c'est une retinal projection, c'est des projections rétinales. Donc, en fait, ça va projeter le contenu digital directement dans notre œil. Bien sûr, cette technologie est très... tous les gens qui ont vu ne peuvent pas en parler, mais ils commencent à avoir des leaks.
Tu l'as vu, toi, ou pas, fonctionner?
Même si je l'aurais vu, je ne pourrais pas dire. Donc, Donc en fait, je peux parler que des choses... Je peux parler que des sources publiques de ça. Donc ce qu'on peut trouver déjà sur Internet. Mais en tout cas, en fait, donc, eux travaillent sur la projection rétinale. Pour l'instant, ils sont les seuls de travailler dessus. Mais après, il y a des plus petites companies, comme par exemple Vervana, qui est à Montréal, qui, eux, ils n'utilisent pas la projection rétinale, mais eux, ils captent, en fait, avec le vidéo, le surrounding space, et ensuite, aussi, ils mélangent ça avec le contenu virtuel. Donc, en fait, avec le device, on peut choisir la mode de transparence. C'est-à-dire que je peux être dans l'environnement complètement virtuel et juste avec le clic de bouton, je peux entrer dans l'environnement réalité augmentée. Okay. Où, en fait, je peux avoir mon contenu digital, mais complètement dans l'espace physique dans lequel je suis. Et tout va se diriger vers ça, parce qu'on veut un seul device qui va nous permettre de transitionner à travers ces modes de transparence digitale, dépendant de qu'est-ce qu'on va vouloir faire.
Okay.
Et donc, le futur est vraiment cette mode de transparence digitale qu'on veut choisir.
Contrôler, choisi. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much. It was a pain for you, but it was much better for us. When you spoke French. It was a good experiment.
Je suis désolée que mon français n'est plus aussi parfait qu'il était.
Non, c'est pas une question d'être désolé, c'est la technique qui est obligée à faire ça.
Donc, peut-être, si je peux rajouter le dernier point en français...
Si on ne me vire pas de la salle, tu peux rajouter quelque chose.
Donc, le dernier point, c'est vraiment... comprendre ces technologies, que ce n'est pas juste entertainment technology, ce n'est pas juste simulation technology pour le militaire ou des choses comme ça, c'est vraiment le futur de computation. Donc les écrans qu'on connaît aujourd'hui, les écrans des tablettes, des ordinateurs, de nos téléphones portables, de n'importe quel device, ils vont disparaître quand ces nouveaux devices de réalité mixte vont devenir suffisamment légers, suffisamment confortables, suffisamment efficaces
en fait, ils vont remplacer les écrans. Et donc, on va avoir un vrai paradigm shift où le monde devient notre desktop.
C'est un très bon résumé, ça. Le monde est notre desktop. Vous retenez. Hein?
C'est ça. The world becomes our desktop. That's right.
Excellent. Merci beaucoup, Monika. Et merci à tous.